Hello. I am, thank you, honey, by the way, for that introduction. Thank you. I am humbled and so grateful that you chose to spend your Saturday night in this way. And I find it so beautiful to gather like this in community, around poetry, around song, around friendship, you know. And if it gets cool this evening, you can lean in. And this is, these events, I hope they continue for a long time. They're collaborative events, and you've heard the names of some of the people that have made this possible. And, Meredith and Aaron created this entire beautiful landscape, and they love to create the aesthetics of things, and they love to work with ceremony. And Tiffany, of course, deep gratitude for this beautiful space, this little hug. This backyard is like a hug, isn't it? It's like yum. And my dear friend Anne Parker, who has provided all the desserts, and she is my true blue buddy. I'm so grateful. And John, who's on sound, who descended from the skies, a gorgeous angel, and said, "I will help you do these things." And he is, I am so touched that we're creating like this collaboratively, and I hope we continue to do so. And you are part of that. Yeah, that's the gorgeous thing. Like, you showing up is tremendous. So tonight, we're talking about beauty, and we're talking about beckoning. And I've been, sometimes when I give a talk or I start to think about a talk, there's a word that I just chew on, and I'm beckoning. It's such a good word, and how often do we use it? We don't use it often. And you think beckoning, the images of people coming around the corner and then they disappear and come around the corner, or just the idea of being beckoned. And when you're beckoned, you're not beckoned like, okay, I think I'll do that. You're not beckoned that way. When you're beckoned, it's your heart, right? I mean, you respond with the potency of the heart when you're beckoned. And I discovered recently that the word beacon, of course, is connected to the word beckoning through the Old English word beacon. So, I love beacon. And it's so funny, I sometimes walk when I'm preparing these talks, I walk along and I talk to myself, and I found myself, talking about the beaconing. The beaconing? Yes, I think I made up a whole new word called beaconing, so I might use that tonight. But this is what I want to ask, like, what calls to you? What calls to you? And what calls to you that ignites your heart? And what calls to you that you can't ignore? Some of us perhaps in childhood, we were lucky and we had something that called to us, and we are pursuing it now, and we will continue to pursue it. I don't know if any of you have seen Hero Dreams of Sushi, the documentary. Yeah, there's this amazing documentary about a man who's 85 years old, and he, at the age of 10, started making sushi, and he is still making sushi at 85, and he dreams of sushi. He thinks only of sushi, and there's these wonderful scenes in the movie of him standing there, and he has a 10-seat restaurant. And he serves his sushi to one of the 10, and he waits for you to eat it. And he nods as oh, it's so wonderful. Of course it is, because he's been making sushi for 75 years, right? So, right. So, for some, it's an incredible blessing. Also, David White, the poet David White, who, if you've heard me talk, I love David White. He talks about being in rural Ireland as a boy, and having these images, these flashes of himself speaking to an audience of thousands. And he's like, I don't know what I'm talking everyone speaking about. He didn't know what he was speaking about, but he knew that he was speaking, and he knew that he was standing there, and he knew that felt good, and he was being called to that, My little brother, who just visited me from Colorado, when he was little, he drew a picture of a house, and he drew an airstrip next to it. And he said, this is the house I'm going to build in Colorado. And he built that house in Colorado. He designed it and he built it. There's no airstrip. But he did build that house, And sometimes we are called in that way, yeah? And then sometimes we're not. Some of us are like, I don't know what my calling is, and it's painful. And some of us are called initially, and then midlife we go, oh no, wait a second. Something entirely different has started to beckon. And that's a really delicious moment about whether you're going to embrace that and say yes to that and dare to make that transition or not. Because there are 1,000 reasons not to listen to what beckons. Yeah, there are 1,000 reasons. We're unestablished, I have kids, I don't have, 1,000 reasons not to. But when something beckons, it's subtle. And, not always, right? Sometimes it's bam, but often it's subtle and it works your way in, and you listen to it, and it presents itself again and again and again until you're ready to make that move. And you can deny it, or you can go, oh wow, that was another whisper. Oh, that was another encouragement, yeah? So, I sort of feel like there are 3 levels of beckoning that I want to talk about tonight. And the first level is that feeling of, there it is. That's what I'm after. That's what I want to start to express. That's what I want to start to explore. And the really interesting thing, of course, is that as you start to do that, as you start to move closer, you're integrating parts of it already. You don't have to get to the mountaintop. You don't have to get to the beacon to have that experience. The minute that you start to set your foot towards what's beckoning, you start to have that vibrate within you. You start to feel it. And there's a beautiful Rumi quote that I will probably come back to, that he says, what you seek is seeking you. Isn't that so comforting? Like, on some level, but what we deeply, deeply desire is also seeking us. And we never know when that might intersect, yeah? So this first level of what calls to us, and I want to explore what if we feel like nothing's calling to us in that level. And then the second level, a second, I would say, concentric circle in a way of like, who is calling to us? Who are we attracted to? Who do we want more of? And who are our allies? And who can we invite into our life because we see them and we say, you. And most often when we see someone and say you, it's because we want more of what they're living in the world, like in our body and being. We want to express some of that, yeah? And then the third layer, I think, is the subtlest and the simplest, which is like, to me, it's the beckoning that's going on every moment, with every heartbeat, with every breath. That the breath in is the inspiration or the call, the breath out is the response, or the heartbeat, the ba-boom, ba-boom is like calling in a certain quality that you want to express, that you want to be, and that can be happening daily, every moment, It doesn't have to be some incredibly long journey towards the ultimate beacon. It's something about like, oh, now there's more of that in my life, and I'm listening to every opportunity for that to come in. Yeah. So sometimes when we hear about beckoning, we feel like, no, I don't feel beckoned. I have a nice job and I'm perfectly happy with it, but I don't feel called. And I think that we're what we need to do in those cases is put ourselves in face to face with incredible beauty. I think that beauty opens us. I think nature opens us. And I think that it allows some of what has been sat on or denied or tucked away or said, oh, I can't address that right now. It allows it to come up, and it allows us to unfold. And actually the first poem that I want to share with you tonight is called Grand Canyon. And there's a line in it that says, it opened every closed place inside me. And there's Rilke also has a poem, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, but he says, where I am folded, there I am a lie. Where I am, there I am a lie. Where I am folded in on myself, there I am a lie. Oh, no, nothing really excites me. I had a client who recently said, oh, I don't really like artists. And I was like, you so want to be an artist, right? Right? I was like, there you are, your artistic self, come forward, And if in a chart, when there's tons of stuff in the 12th house, you can be hiding back, waiting to emerge, and I'm like, come on out of there, you expressive girl. But we get so, I don't like that. That's ugly, or that's not attractive to me. You better believe you better look at that, right? Because that might be the thing that's beckoning. So this poem is called Grand Canyon, and it is about the time when I was, and I wrote it quite a while ago. I was pregnant with my daughter, and my husband said, have you ever seen the Grand Canyon? And I'd never seen the Grand Canyon. He said, we absolutely have to go to the Grand Canyon. Because I'm sure you all, if I were to say to you, what place in the world, when you stand there in the natural world, what opens you? What opens you? You immediately, for me it's the redwoods, right? Someone else it's the ocean. For someone else it's the lake by grandma's house, But what opened you? I mean, all I wanted to do when I was at the Grand Canyon was just be like, I mean, I really, that feeling of just wanting to breathe it in. So I always say that if you don't feel like you have a purpose, or if you don't feel like you're being called, go stand somewhere beautiful. So here we go, Grand Canyon. And by the way, just let the poetry wash over you. Don't applaud afterwards, just let it soak in. I just feel like poetry is almost a language of the heart that's just meant to kind of rain over you. And I just find it such a essential language, and a language of love, and a heightened language, and you just get to sort of bathe in it. When you are 6 months in my belly, your father and I traveled to the Grand Canyon. In all my 36 years, I've never been. You have to see it, your father says. It will change you. We stop on our way back from Boulder, Colorado. We want to celebrate our 4th anniversary amidst beauty. I cannot speak when I first glimpse the canyon lines through the trees. It opens every closed place inside me. I gulp the redness of the rock like one dying of thirst. Your father watches and smiles. He knows I am fed by majesty. The redwoods left me silent and full for weeks. The road ends at our hotel. We drop our bags in a spare, clean room, and without pause leave to walk the canyon's edge. Hand in hand, we climb to rocks that hang suspended above everything and nothing. We sit and rest and kiss and stare. We take pictures of condors flying overhead, unable to believe their size, their span of wing. That night, your father cajoles a reluctant host to give us a reservation that does not exist, to dine by a window at dusk and watch the canyon disappear. We make love that night, my round belly between us, and fall asleep curled tightly in one another's arms. The alarm rings at 4 a.m. Still groggy with sleep, we dress without a word. We drive 10 minutes, park, and 2 doors slam. Stepping through the trees, we find others waiting. We choose a quiet place to watch the return of the sun. You stir in my belly. There's silence as the lines of the canyon sharpen. I open my arms to the breaking rays of dawn. The first light floods your home with beauty. Here there is no fear. I breathe in. Here I let go. I breathe out. Here the canyon's walls hold all I can release. I stretch my arms still further to wrap them around this timeless moment. Your father steps back to quietly take a picture. 1 year later, you are in my arms, your beauty as exquisite as the canyon at dawn. This morning, the picture your father took slips from my journal. As I hold it so we both can see, you pat the picture with your chubby, precious baby hands. I imagine it in those hands years from now. You found it while reading the stories of my young life. You study it, knowing you are there too. You wonder if I'm happy. You wonder if I'm afraid. You wonder if my arms are outstretched in embrace or surrender or both. You exhale. Over time, over distance, through silence, I rush back to hold you as you open your own arms to release all you need not carry and embrace all that's yet to come. It's always so beautiful to look at a family picture of someone, even in your family, that you either didn't know well or knew incredibly well, and what in that moment was beckoning them, right? What in that moment was calling to them. And I can still bodily, tangibly feel the experience of standing there as the canyon, as the sun broke through. And you cannot stay closed. You know, you can, but you have to fight for it, right? And we just need more of those experiences where we say, all right, I'm willing. I mean, like here I am, right? I'm willing to be this raw. I'm this vulnerable. Here I am, available, as opposed to all the ways that we choose to not listen, right, or not hear the call. So go to nature if you're listening for the call, right? So the next poem I want to share with you is a poem called Home, and it speaks really presently to this moment in my life, and perhaps, hopefully, you know, when we speak personally, hopefully it's universal, right? And for me, at this moment in my life, as Andrew was saying, like there is a huge ship that feels like is shifting course, and I started to articulate this, and 3 years back, I started to say, I love astrology, which I do, and I will always do astrology, I love astrology, but what if I weren't an astrologer? And if you love what you do, if you love it, it's an amazing question to ask yourself. What if I never practiced astrology again? What if I never was a psychotherapist again? What if I never wrote again? What would call me? It's a fascinating question just to hold, because you start to get nervous. You start to go, I can't put that down, I'm really good at that. Well, that's how people see me, right? That's what I'm expected to show up with. I'm an adult. I have to have something that I can say that I do really well at parties, right? I don't like that. So this came about because I said to myself, what if I don't? What if I don't practice astrology as much as I have been practicing astrology? And what if I turned to a childhood love of writing again? And what if I said hello again to the artist self in me? What would happen? And I wrote this poem, and I got all these calls from my mother and various family members like, honey, are you leaving your husband? Are you leaving home? Are you just like, because it sounds so dramatic in a way, right? But it was an interior shift that I needed to make. It was, and you'll hear it. It sounds like, okay, everything is shattering behind me. But when you hear yourself say something that has power, when you overhear yourself say it, you can't go back in a way, You can't go back. So this is called Home. When it was done, when words were spoken that cannot be unsaid, the silence kissed my eyes and mouth and whispered into the caves of my heart. All my life I heard the joyous music in a village just around the bend, and though the music was wild and free and insistent, and though my heart stirred from the strains I could dimly hear, I never chose to go. There was work to be done, after all. But after all, when there was nothing left to do but walk in the last blazes of the sun from all that was familiar, I opened my eyes, freshly kissed, and in wordless wonder, followed this beckoning, ceaseless beauty home. And it's, but after all, when there was nothing left to do but walk in the last blazes of the sun from all that was familiar, that's all you can do at a certain point. It's all you can do. You open your eyes and you say, okay, well, I said that, and now I have to take at least this biggest step in this direction. Yeah? And, in some ways, it doesn't sound like much to say, oh, well, I'm not going to spend as much time doing this. I'm going to shift my attention here. But I think we all know that it's a huge thing about our own identity, about what we want to express in the world, about being truthful about what is truly beckoning, instead of ignoring it, instead of saying, that's not for me, I'm too old, my time is done. You can answer the call at any moment, at any time. So, and this was a perfect example where I wrote this poem, as I said, 4 years ago, or three years ago, I think it was, before I was ever ready to really fully act on it. Sometimes you have to write yourself into courage. You have to write yourself, like, I could never do that, but I'll write about it. Right? When it was done, when I quit all that, and you put it away, and then you suddenly read it again, and you're like, okay, I'm in the middle of doing that. And it's raw and vulnerable and full of angst and full of true meaning, yeah, and transcendent experiences. So, I'm all for midlife shifts. Anyone out there for midlife shifts? Yes. It's always also so gorgeous, and I don't know if this is for me the case, but like I was saying, like, it's always so gorgeous if there was something as a child that you were like, oh, I love that. And then life happened, and you were like, I can't do that anymore. And then for 20 years, you just did what you were supposed to do. And then to reignite with that, like, that child wonder. I was sitting in Elsa's room just by myself for a minute, and I walked in, and I was sitting in the bed, and it was dark, and I was like, oh, there's something so beautiful about sitting in a little girl's room, right? And just and remembering just the freedom of that in a way. Yeah. So this next poem is my newest poem, and it's called Uncommonly Low. Uncommonly Low. I was uncommonly low when I wrote this poem. And I think it's actually really important to talk about because you start to make this shift and you get uncommonly low. You better believe that when you start to make this shift and when you start to feel new energy coming in, along with that new energy is going to come all the stuff that you repressed for all the years that you repressed it, right? And all the stuff that was like, it's going to be like, why didn't you start this sooner? Or, or like, why didn't you pay attention earlier? It's going to come up. And it might not come up in that way. It might come up in a, just like, wow, this is a big change. This is a big change to move towards this beckoning. So this was one of the days when I was uncommonly low, and I somehow managed to sit down and write instead of moan. But moaning is sometimes good too. And what I love about this is, you'll hear it, I love how angels can come in when you least expect it, like when you're in the like, and then as I was writing, there was a whole new hope that came in, and I'll just read it and stop talking about it. Okay. If we meet this afternoon in an elevator on the way to the 22nd floor, and you smile and happen to ask, how are you? If I dare speak the truth, I would say, I am uncommonly low, my friend. Low like a reptile, barely moving, hardly breathing, shifty-eyed low. At which point you might grow silent or shake your head or say, sorry to hear that. And I would, of course, understand. Saying something like that makes everyone uncomfortable. But what if you said, honey, child, I know, and reached out to hug me, and I just fell into your arms? And what if we just kept on hugging through all the announcing the 22nd floor dings? What if the doors opened and someone got on and tried to ignore us, but we started laughing and crying at the same time, and that someone joined in because she knew a seismic shift was underway, and it looked like huge relief with all that weight and sadness and fatigue flinging down the elevator shaft. And then, what if we all just sat on the elevator floor and rode it up and down like I did once in college, greeting everyone with a giddy hello, forgetting everything but the sweetness of an unpredictable ride. I did that in college. And it was really fun. It was one of the best college nights. I think we sat in the elevator for 5 hours, and it was good. It was playful, it was young, it was innocent, it was spontaneous. It didn't involve alcohol. It was just, it was just there. But what is beautiful about this poem is that, look, we're all, I think of almost, when you look at an airport and you see in the sky planes landing, they're all like hovering at different levels, and you can look out the window and a plane's landing over there and a plane's landing over there, right? You know what I'm talking about? Well, like, we're all walking towards what's beckoning, right? And we're like, I'm getting there, I'm not, I suck, I'm getting there, I'm not, we have that whole journey. And what's just so important, and maybe it's obvious, but like, you gotta tell the truth along the way, so that we can actually help one another, so we can actually speak honestly and valuably to one another. So yeah, what if you said, I feel like a shifty-eyed reptile? Next time someone asks, but no, what if you had this much, an inch closer towards the truth of the matter? And then we're willing to be surprised by, and we're willing to be held, or we're willing to be touched, yeah? So next time you're on an elevator, it'll be a very different experience. Okay, so the energy starts moving, right? You start to name the sadness. You start to subtly follow the things that are meaningful. And you know what? You can, as I said earlier, like the whispers, the beckonings might be, I love that color, or that music thrills me, or this block of walking this block makes me so happy. Like, you have to listen to those tiny, tiny beckonings in order to find the larger one. But the minute you start to find the larger one, like nothing can, you don't fit in your old clothes anymore, right? And you start really articulating what you do want and what it wants to feel like. In fact, I don't know if it seems like these days a lot of people are saying, what do you want this to feel like? How do you want to feel? Not what do you want to do, how do you want to feel, right? And I so appreciate that, and a lot of different sort of thinkers in the world are saying, like, how do you want it to feel? So I think this year I said I want it to feel spacious, intimate, and light. And that's a kind of cool New Year's resolution, to be like, how do I want to feel this year? But this was my how do I want to feel that came out of a writing prompt from Bruce Gelfand's writing class, and which is great, by the way, and you should all come to my studio where we hold it on Monday nights and Wednesday mornings. Okay. It's called Sugar Child. That was the prompt, Sugar Child, and it just suddenly gave me this like, and it's kind of sexy, and I talk about my lover, but when I talk about my lover, I want you to feel like the world is the lover. Like the beloved. How do you want to be in the world in a sensual way? Yeah? You know what I'm talking about. I'm going to start preaching. Okay. All right, here we go. Sugar Child. I want to be sugar in the raw, sweet enough to change the taste of things. Sugar in the raw for my lover, soft, bountiful, a bowl full of me. I don't want to be hiding out, sipping life. I want to be innocent, unprotected, raw sugar baby. I want to be wanted, tasted, licked, held close until it's time for the yum. My lover treats me like I am. For him, I'm the only sugar around. I may be hard as saltwater taffy, needing to be chewed and kneaded and worked before the prize. I may be lemony and sour and sharp on his tongue before he works to the smooth sweetness. But I'm his sugar. Oh, sugar child. Oh, sugar mama. Oh, baby, baby, baby. I am talking to myself now. I full-bodied know the sweetness that I am, and I want to give into it just a little. So I soften like caramel and spread that richness for myself and anyone who wants a taste. Too much? I hope so. It's no vow broken. It's just warm and revealed and flush and available. It's me daring to be the deliciousness of life, not standing outside of it, growing gray, not crumpling in with the weight, not limiting the freedom of the fullest, juiciest offering. Because baby, because sugar, the sweetness of life is real. I am tired of looking through the candy store window. I want to press my face against the glass, feel its cool, smooth hardness, eye every sweet thing, and then walk through the door and roll in it. I will walk through the door, shedding every bit of gray and color my body with sweetness, Tootsie Pop. I will dip my hands into every soft-colored powder and suck, because I am tired of a pinch-drawn face and the weight I carry. Call me cotton candy, call me sugar love, call me raw, but call me. I want to be called and consumed and asked to give it all. Sugar love, know this, I am good chocolate. I'm silky and smooth and my taste lingers. I've just been a little shy and a pinch preoccupied. It's taken a lifetime of playing Candyland to remember that every spot is sweet on the way and there's nothing to do but give into it. Sugar, sugar love. Being all grown up doesn't leave room for the daily trip to the stop and go with a quarter in my pocket. I am spending now, and I'm choosing carefully a wide variety of yum, because I've been hungry for too long. But guess what, dreamsicle? I'm the candy too. Every bite I take of sweetness, I'm licked by love like a mama cat. Sugar, I want to be soft, and I am. Sugar love, I am. Yay. That's sort of unusual for my repertoire, but it's fun to let yourself out of the box now and again. But you know, it's like, yeah, when you start to unfold, then when you start to address the pain, when you start to address the fear, this is like, I've studied Grinberg for quite a while, and that's what it's about, me too, right? It's like, when you start to like full on go, okay, I'm afraid, yeah, I'm in pain, then suddenly you're not having to hold it so tightly, and there's a whole surge of glorious freedom that comes on in and through that allows you to create and express and follow the calls that you hear, right? Call me, I want to be called. Don't we want to be called? We want to be called. We don't want to sit at home on the couch. Sometimes we do, but I want to be called. Okay, so this is the other thing. Just this is like another little note along the way, all right? This poem is another kind of suggestion that we might all practice, which is what I was saying earlier, you know, being at parties and like, what do you do? Well, I am, da, 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 and you practice your 2-minute pitch and you get really good at it. And it's very tiring. But, you know, and I often like to ask people, I say like, well, what do you love to do? You know, what do you love to do? Or, how do you love to spend your time, or, right? Because I think it's very valuable to put down the names that we call ourselves for a while. Just what do we call ourselves? I mean, I get tired of what I call myself. So I think it's a really interesting exercise to do that. So this poem is called Nameless, and it's just an invitation to put down all, where am I going in and out? To put down all the names that we usually work with. We are not who we say we are. There are no words for that name, none full enough. Our name is a symphony, the sunrise. It is a name that holds all the sounds of silence. We are not who we say we are, though we insist it is so. Maybe we should listen for the name the sky has to offer, or the redwood. It would be loving and infinitely simple. Let's lay each name we've spoken into a greater flame. Let's soften the grasp on what is only ours and breathe the terror and the flush of freedom. Let's be nameless for a time and listen. And I love this, let's soften the grasp on what is only ours. And if we soften the grasp on what is only ours, like, this is who I am, this is my family, this is my identity. If we can soften that, then we can open it up and be like, this is my family, right? And that's terrifying, and it's the flush of freedom, and it's a whole new way of being, but it's not so tightly held about who I am and where I'm going, and it's much more fun to live in a little bit of wonder and the unknown. And who knows what we might call ourselves today or tomorrow. And just experiment with it. Like, talk about yourself in a new way. That's another way of listening to the call. It's a good night, isn't it? It's a beautiful night. So, concentric circle number 2, the second tour, not as large as the first. Concentric circle number 2, who beckons you? Who calls to you? And who do you want more of? Who are your allies? And this poem is a funny poem that I almost hesitate to read to you because it's schlocky young love. No, I mean, it's like a poem I wrote a long time ago when I first met my husband. And I want to read it to you because it captures that moment of looking across a room and saying that, I want more of that. I need that. We have to get better at doing this. Like, to actually identify, good at that, to identify people and say, yes, come hither, come to me. You have something for me, I want to dance in that for a while, right? So this poem is so funny because some people in this room actually were there 20 years ago. They will know themselves. They don't even know about it. But so I was I was visiting. I had a different boyfriend at the time, and I was visiting him in graduate school. And I walked into a cast party, and I saw my person across the room, and he was beckoning, though his back was to me, and he didn't know I was there the entire time. But it was also another moment in my life where I looked and I was like, there's no way, so I'll just stand here and kind of like be like, there's no way. But okay, so here we go. It's called 1,000 Days. You stand across the room, dressed in black. A silky shirt fits your lean, strong form. A woman stands close, she smiles. Long brown hair falls over porcelain shoulders. You love her, I can tell. Look at you across the room. I could spend a lifetime here. You do not feel my eyes on you. I cannot move them. He pulls me to leave, the man I'm with. I do not wish to go. I will stay here. I will watch you. I will watch you laugh across the room. You're so far away from any life I can imagine. Now I sit on the floor wrapped in a white tussled sheet. You are wrapped all around me. You pull me to the mirror. Look at you. Your hand traces my body. I could spend a lifetime here. 1,000 days I waited for you to turn your head and look across the room. 1,000 days my heart stood still. In the mirror, I see you turn, your eyes upon me shining. Hello, my love. So, I mean, it's quite funny and lovely because it was one of those startling moments where it was like everything just like, and then I had to wait sort of 3 years before meeting him again, right? But something in me knew, and something in your body knows when there's a true ally. A teacher of mine in Boulder, Colorado, I was in her class. I had just started studying with her. A woman walked in, she hugged her, and she was like, oh, we were in Australia together at this retreat, and it was wonderful. And in that moment, my whole body said, I'm going to Australia and I'm studying with this woman for the next 12 years. I mean, it was just like I knew it. And it was decided in that moment. It was clear. And those are delicious moments. And then, of course, there are some moments where you really just, you have to, you cultivate the intimacy or you cultivate the connection. But some are so clear from the get-go. And again, I just think, you could scan it. Like right now I could say, stop. I won't do it. But I could say, stop, everybody look around. Just look around the room and let your eyes land on someone. Or, find the person who is beckoning, and someone would be beckoning. Someone would be beckoning. It's like, oh, I need to learn. I need to know more about, I need to just sit down next to this person. I need to put my head, I need to talk. So that's just a delicious practice in a coffee shop or at work, or, just to be like, who in this room, if forced to do that, would I want to have a conversation with? So, this is another little, along the way, remember to do this. My friend and colleague Miranda Barrett recently was telling me about a t-shirt she saw, and it said, the past, the present, and the future walked into a bar. It was tense. But it's true. If you let it land, it's very true, right? The past, the present, the future walked into a bar. It's tense. Because that's pretty much, we walk every day into a bar with the past, the present, and the future, totally chaotic within us. And now I'm thinking about the dessert, and now I'm regretting that I told my mother this, whatever it is. And I'm trying to have a conversation with you at the same time. I mean, that's my life, right? Isn't it yours? So along the way of this, as we talk about beaconing, as we talk about beckoning, I'm going there, but it's going to be really hard to go there because of all this past difficult stuff, but I'm going there. And now, so I want to talk about the moment when you're like, I am in it, I am so in it, and I'm appreciating exactly where I am right now, no matter how hard it is, or no matter how gorgeous it is. This poem happens to be about how gorgeous it was at that moment, but I could step over here and tell you, I am so happy to be here in this deliciously, enormously difficult day where I'm just having to wrestle through, but I am present, I think my son Dylan, I kid you not, he grabs me like this, and he looks at me, he's like, look at me, look at my eyes, you are mine. And he's like, he pretty much is saying, be here now, be with me now. And I mean, because I'm the queen of multitasking. But finally, I've been really getting the message, right? Because he's just stay with me, because this is a good moment. He's a great teacher to me. He's convincing. So this was a moment just like that. And it was a moment 5 years after I got married, 1 year after we'd had Kate, and we were in a beautiful little cabin. And it's one of those sparkly moments. I hope we all have them. And so I called it Why Look Forward. It is Tuesday afternoon on a perfect spring day. My husband carries our baby daughter on a circular mown path around the meadow. He lifts her to his shoulders, disappearing for a moment behind a tree. They walk through a patch of shade and out again. I imagine he is singing to her or naming the flowers and birds in the field. She is surely laughing. Her perfect head bobs up and down through dappled light. They could hear me if I called. I stand and watch on the steps of our cabin. We are here to celebrate 5 years of marriage. When first we came, we were newlyweds. Now we arrive with new life. Soon they will return to me, to this little home. Their journey will end. Tomorrow will come. Why look forward? Why desire anything but this? Why long for a moment other than now? For now, here, now, are flowers and sunlight, my husband, child, and I, inseparably dancing in a meadow, awash with love. And what a beautiful, for now, here, now. I mean, that's a beautiful practice, for now. Here, now, we're sitting in a backyard in September, and little beautiful things are falling on our heads. Or now, here, now, I'm sitting next to my beloved. Or now, here, now, I'm sitting next to a person that's a stranger, but it's kind of interesting. Or now, here, now, I'm sitting next to my friend. I mean, just that idea of now, here, now. This is what's happening. I'm so not good at it, but I am practicing, you know? And it's a worthy practice. Yeah, I mean, we all talk about it in so many different ways. How do we be present? But my version of it now is now, here, now, now. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to read you a poem my husband wrote. He is a poet as well, and he's a very, very good poet. And I would like to do a night of his poetry. And this poem, he gave to me about 5 years ago. It's called The Birthday. He gave it to me on my birthday. And we were in a kind of fancy restaurant in LA, and I read it and I just burst into tears. And then I read it again and I sobbed some more. And then I read it again and I was like, oh! And like it was about 30 minutes of a lot of crying. Because I'm not a big crier like that, but it was a kind of moment of recognition, and it was a moment of being seen, and it was redemptive. And this is the concentric circle that's about the call and respond that goes on in our being, and the part of us that is beckoning the best part of us to show up, and the part that's trying to respond but can't always respond. Yeah. And this poem, actually, you need to know a little astrology, which I love that he wrote an astrology poem for me. So I'm a Leo rising, okay? And Leo is the lion and is courageous and is yearning to express. And if in the chart you want to know what is beckoning you, look at your rising sign, because that is truly beckoning. And it's beckoning you in the way, not outside, but inside, like what you want to be, what you want to embody, what you want to emanate, what you want to offer. Like just because it's lit up in you and you can't do anything but pulse it out. Like I've been talking about it lately in readings with clients, like, you know how sometimes there's a 92-year-old woman that's just sitting and she's just, or a man, just giving off an energy that you just want to go and curl up in her lap, or what is that quality of being, you know? And by the end of my life, I want to be emanating a quality of being like that is just so organic and true to who I am. So that's the Leo rising, that's the lion. We have to know the animals in this. That's the lion. I'm an Aries sun. It's another fire sign. They're both fire signs. And Aries is pioneering and initiating and get out of my way, and I have new ideas and I want to get them out there at its best and worst. And then the moon sign is where we often get stuck. And I'm a goat, I'm Capricorn, which is very serious and takes life very seriously and very purposefully and very hardworking. And I always beat myself up for that part. And I always say, I don't know how to play. I'm always thinking about work. I'm just a serious girl who's duty bound forever. That's what I tell myself, right? So this poem to me, feels so redemptive, because what he does in it is acknowledge the wholeness of me, and, you know, and that's what we have to do for ourselves, I think, before we can stride forward, you know? So, I guess without further ado. And by the way, my birthday is April 1st, I'm an April Fool. I can't imagine it was easy for the goat when she received the invitation to the April Fool's party, which was, of course, a birthday party too, knowing the ram and the lion would be hosting. The goat probably thought she was to be the fool herself, the serious one in the corner as the others frolicked and jousted. The lion has her quiet moments, she probably thought, as she readied herself to go, trying to forget the lion's preening, feline ways. And the ram keeps things lively, not quite remembering that those curving antlers clacked and stung. So she took a breath, her soft flanks puffing gently out, and picked her sure-footed way across the heavens till she found her place behind the waning moon. She found them in a meadow of stars. The sight, it must be said, was awesome in the darkness. The ram's quick hooves struck sparks on the stones, and the lion's grace brought tears to the goat's eyes, an incandescent pair trampling the sod beneath their feet. The goat settled in, watchful, her head high, a wry smile on her lips, vigilant, bemused, comic even, her light fur falling in unkempt tresses. The others were still. It was awkward. The distant cry of a newborn baby girl broke the silence. The lion's head swiveled, a woofing sound deep in her throat, suddenly majestic, her vanity banished, her heart beating strong and true. The ram's feet took root in the earth, his throbbing temples cooled, his gaze turned soft and wise. The two fiery ones watched, transfixed, as the goat rose to her feet and began her ascent towards the new girl's cries, step by step, determined at first, but now stepping, now leaping, now bounding, unafraid, joyful, regal even, on four cloven hooves, on sturdy, tireless knees. Honestly, something in me cellularly changed from reading that poem. I remember the feeling, and I think that poetry has the capacity to do that, is to like cellularly restructure you, because in that moment, it was like, oh, wait, there's a different way to hold this part of me, which I have not been holding, which I have been dismissing, which I have been casting in a terrible character, right? And there's a different way to hold that. And it's a wholeness, and it's an embrace, and it's a come along for the ride, and it's, it's integrated. It's not all the different parts that are broken off, yeah. So, I just remember feeling, and every time I read it, it's like, right. The whole self wants to go on this journey. Not just the Leo lion, right? There's a reason there's that combination. And you don't have to talk about it in terms of astrology. I know there's a part of all of you that has been dismissed or ignored or belittled, or, and so there's something about the integration of all that. And, if there is a true beckoning of the soul, you are meant to be this, to do this, to live as this, then all parts have to be summoned to fulfill that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I just have two more pieces. And this next one is also a relatively new piece. And to me, a lot of my poems, I'm realizing as I'm speaking to you tonight, offer an opportunity to actually take action, or to practice something, or to try something out, right? And a lot of poems recently also, for me, have a lot to do with what to do with sadness. What to do with sadness when it's sitting there, and you feel imprisoned by it. And what are the little steps that you can take that will jostle you out of that, so that you can truly hear what and who is calling? Because you can't hear who is calling when you're closed in, and right. So I guess I feel like I've been wrestling with that for a while, and this was one of the wrestles. And to me, this is about the inner concentric circle, because it also it's taking what is out there. What you seek is seeking you. It's taking the star out there, and it's smashing it into your chest and saying, it's in there already. I am already what I am seeking to express. It's taking what feels so bright and beautiful and saying, wait a second, it's reigniting a flame, yeah? So this is called What to Do with Sadness. When sadness lingers, when loneliness creeps in to sit beside you and will not leave, when you can no longer feel a spark of joy in even a hidden corner, find something, anything that is burning. A star, a porch lamp, a candle on the table. Then imagine that light at the center of your heart and remember you are molten love. The only thing to do with sadness is to introduce it to indestructible beauty, to the flame of love present in every living thing. Start with a morning glory or a sparrow. Start with the spirited eyes of the woman who serves you coffee. Start with a poem. Say, sadness, meet cherry blossom. Despair, meet the Ninth Symphony. Grief, meet the eyes of a child. And then be very, very quiet and let them converse for a time. And sometimes it's that simple, right? It's not nothing forced. It's let them converse for a time. Just sit with it. Just sit. My Sophia, who I told you about earlier, would just tell us to go out on a walk and just spend time with that purple flower for a while, Just sit with it and see how it changes you. Find a poem each morning and see how it changes you. Allow yourself to be affected by beauty. It's so easy to close off to it. It's so easy to live our lives and not pay attention, but allowing yourself to be affected. So, and I was thinking just this morning that I'm so fiery. I'm like Leo and Aries, right? I'm so fiery. And it's like, find something that's burning, put it in your chest. But I was thinking about my friend Val, actually, who's here. And I was like, she's so watery. And I'm like, find an ocean and swim in. It's gotta be it might be a different element. Find some mud and smear it on yourself. I mean, for me, it's the fire and remembering that you're burning molten love, but it might be something that is obviously texturally different for you. Okay, so the last little piece that I want to share with you is like a prose poem, and it speaks to this. No matter how much we're out in the world going, this is what I'm doing, this is what I want out of life, this is what I'm after. The world always has different plans, right? What you want of the world and what the world wants of you, this is never going to completely do the fabulous dance. You're always going to be negotiating. But I would like to be doing that, but you're going to have to, So it's there's always that going on. So I was in Boulder, and I deliciously had gotten to go to Boulder by myself to go study with my teacher. I got a free flight, I got free lodging, I got free everything. It just happened like it was meant to be. And I was definitely beckoned, right? I opened the email, and I was like, wait a second, Sophia's gonna be in Boulder in 10 days, I'm gonna go. And my husband was like, great, that's great. But then the next morning he was like, go. Because I can't go if you're gonna be like that. And then he's like, no. He was very good, actually. That negotiation that goes on. But he was amazing, and I went, and I stayed in this little cabin up in the mountains where I used to live years and years and years ago. And I was there by myself, and I was writing. I was like, I am going to follow this beckoning. I'm going to go to yoga. I'm going to use this time to write. I'm going to write poetry, la la la. So I was sitting in the cabin the first day, and I'm silent, poised, and suddenly I hear, I'm like, oh God, there must be a mouse in the walls. I was like, there must be something in the walls. And I was like, oh, that sucks. Okay, well, I'll just keep writing. And ignored it. The next day, and I look around, I'm like, I think there's a mouse stuck in the heating unit, and I'm looking at it, and oh, it's a mouse, I'm like, I don't know what to do, it's stuck, I can't figure it out. The next day, even more, and I'm like, okay, I've got to do something. It's a mouse. I've got to figure this out. He's attached to gas line. I'm like, and at this point, it's also like, but I'm supposed to be writing poetry, and this is happening. And actually, finally, the last day, you'll hear, that was what I was there to do, to take care of this, and you'll hear what happens. So it's called Ecstasy and a Cabin Mouse. There's a mouse caught in the heating unit. I don't know much about heaters, but I'm here in this little rustic cabin, and it's attached to the wall. There's a metal pipe, a vent of sorts that leads outside, but this mouse is stuck somewhere I can't reach. Every few minutes, the scrape of little feet fills the silence. I'm imagining him trying to climb some smooth vertical surface and failing repeatedly. His attempts are further apart now, and I'm feeling helpless. Jim, a man of many gifts who works this land, came yesterday and put a rope down the vent so the mouse might crawl out, get some traction, chew his way up even. Clearly, it isn't working. This morning in yoga, I struggled to stay in an asana that was impossibly difficult. My beloved teacher happened to be standing near and took that moment to remind us that our relationship to this pose was equivalent to our capacity to experience ecstasy. I burst into tears. It made a perfect sad sense to me. My hard-working, responsible, duty-bound self choked and sputtered, laughed and sobbed. I hope that little mouse realizes there's a way out, even if it takes some work. There's a whole ecstatic wilderness out there. Part 2. My mouse keeps scratching. I'm thinking no matter how hard he works, he may not be able to crawl out of his confinement. Some force greater than his valiant attempts is needed now. I may be that force. I'm also beginning to think my mouse is a chipmunk, and though I'm ashamed to admit it, I'm feeling even more urgency to get him out. 2 chipmunks are standing vigil outside the heating unit. One keeps leaping on the screen and pressing itself against it, willing to give way. I leave messages everywhere, knock on doors, and finally find a wrench to yank this thing off the wall, but there's gas involved and stripped screws, and I am not that handy. I give up on tools and instead assure the chipmunk that I'm working on it. I'm not sure I've ever experienced a knight in shining armor, but when Jim appears with his tool belt, I practically kiss him. I pace as he works. When he's ready, we both pull the unit from the wall. Nothing. We carry it out to the grass and tilt it on its side, propping it up with a log and a rock. Nothing. Then the scurry of feet. I sit, watching the exit pipe. Then, plop. The cutest little chipmunk bursts into the light of day, stands, blinks, and scurries off. I clap, I sigh, I practically dance. Just as I begin to thank Jim, we hear more scratching. He smiles. I listen, giddy now. I watch again, and plop. Another little one blinks and bolts. 2! Jim gets up to pack his tools, and a 3rd emerges. Then his sibling follows. 4 free baby chipmunks. I am crying. I am jubilant. I am ecstatic. So yeah, I mean, it's just what was such a perfect learning for me is that was the high moment of the whole weekend, was sitting there and watching these chipmunks be birthed into the light of day, and I didn't want to have anything to do with it. I didn't want to have to figure that out. I wanted to sit with my book, and so sometimes it's like taking the moment to do that, and I felt like, see, I can experience ecstasy, even if I can't experience it in the yoga pose. And it was really a moment of liberation, and it was a moment of following a calling, then this a different kind of calling. So thank you, and I hope that you each tomorrow, later tonight, listen just a little more deeply for the whispers in your life, and you dare yourself to take one step in the direction of a a little beacon that might be calling to you. Thank you so much.